Hello. Hello, Suresh. Hello, Suresh.
Yeah, yes.
You can start the session now.
Yeah. Hi guys, good morning. You guys are able to see my screen, right? Okay, right. Let's get started. So if we take our previous sessions, we are getting understanding about how exactly we can get work with the different type of the wait statement, nothing but working with the wait stage here, right? So in a wait stage, we are understanding about how exactly we can utilize with the static wait and which we will be taking with the dynamic wait, right? Now in a similar manner, we need to be get understand that, okay? So we need to be get understand that how exactly we can get work with the exception handling. Okay. So while working with the Blue Prism, we need to be get understand about how exactly we can get work with the exception handling here. Okay. Before going to the exception handling, what make you the reason? Okay, or what will be the use to get implemented exception handling while working with the Blue Prism? Okay, so we need to be get understand that what make you the reason or what will be the use to get implemented exception handling. Okay, right. Now let's get understand on it what make the advantages or why we need to be implemented with the exception handling. Okay, right. The very first thing, while working with the Blue Prism, we need to be get a design with the object. Whenever we are designing with the object, we used to be getting errors here, right? So if I'm taking that particular errors, okay, if I'm taking that particular errors, which you will be getting different kind of errors, okay. We used to be having a different kind of errors. In that, one you will be mentioning that syntax errors, okay. One you will be mentioning that syntax errors, and another one, okay, one will be mentioning the syntax errors, and another one which will be mentioning the runtime errors. One will be saying that syntax errors, and the one will be mentioning that runtime errors. Okay, so whenever you are working with the exception handling, you will be getting with the two kind of errors. One you will be taking with the syntax errors, and one you will be taking with the runtime errors. If I'm taking with the syntax errors, whenever we are designing with the object, in case of any issues with the syntax, like a link is missing or data is missing, those kind of errors will be considered as a syntax errors here. If I'm taking with the syntax errors, the syntax errors will be easily identified by the Blue Prism. Okay. If I'm taking with the syntax errors can easily identified by the Blue Prism. That means by default, syntax errors can be easily handled by the Blue Prism. So designing any object or while designing any process, if you want to get identify any syntax errors, to get identify the syntax errors, not required to make any huge activities. Okay. in a similar manner which you will be getting with the runtime errors. Okay, so which you will be getting with the runtime errors. If I'm taking with the runtime errors, okay, so if you take with the runtime errors, this is once you are executing it. Okay, once you are executing it in a runtime, you will be getting an error, right? Once you are executing it in a runtime, you will be getting an error that it will be considering an a runtime errors. So if I'm taking with the syntax errors, it will be identified while designing with the object or while designing with the process. But if I'm taking with the runtime errors, we cannot get identified while designing. Once your design has been completed, you will be getting executing it. Whenever it was taken with the execution in a runtime, there may be a chances it will be giving it here. So for that particular purpose, to get handle this runtime errors, you will be taking with the help of the exception handling. Okay, so to get handled with the runtime errors, it will be taking with the help of the exception handling here. Okay, so one it will be taking with the syntax errors and one it will be taking with the runtime errors here. Now, syntax errors by default, it will be handled by the Blue Prism tool only, but runtime errors, we need to be take with the help of different kind of the stages here. Okay, so now while working with the Blue Prism, to get implemented with the exception handling, it will be taking with the help of the different stages. Okay, so whenever you are working with the Blue Prism related to the exception handling, we used to be take with the help of the different stages. If we look into those stages, okay, if I'm looking into those stages, one I will be mentioning that recover. Okay, one I will be mentioning that recover. Okay, and one I will be mentioning that resume. Okay, one I will be taking with the recover and one I will be taking with the resume and one I will be taking with the exception. So whenever you are taking with the stages, you will be getting with the three different kind of the stages. Okay. So while working with the stages, you will be getting with the three different kind of the stages. One you will be taking with the recover stage, and one you will be taking with the resume stage, and one you will be taking with the exception stage. Okay, so these are the three built-in stages which it has been used to get implemented with the exception handling. Okay, all right. Now here, if I'm taking with the recover stage, okay, if I'm taking with the recover stage, the functionality of recover stage, okay, the functionality of recover stages which it has been used to recover, okay, we can say that to recover any error window. Okay, the functionality of recover stages which it has been used to recover any error window. That means whenever we are working with the Blue Prism, you are designing with the object, you are getting executed. Assume that while executing, you are getting one error window. Because of that error window, it will not be continued with the remaining execution. Okay, so because of that error window, it will not be continued with the remaining execution. For that particular purpose, okay, so for that particular purpose, we need to be recover that error window and we need to be continue the execution from the next step here. For that particular purpose, to recover that error window, it will be taking with the help of the recover stage here. Okay, and at the same time, which I will be taking with the resume. Okay, which I will be taking with the resume. One I will be taking with the recover stage, and one I will be taking with the resume stage. So if I'm taking with the resume stage, okay. So if I'm taking with the resume stage, which it will be mentioning that to resume. Okay, it will be mentioning that to resume the execution. Okay, to resume the execution, it will be taking with the help of the resume stage. And the one it will be taking with the exception. Okay, and one I will be taking with the exception. So if I'm taking with the exception, which it will be mentioning that to throw an exception. Okay, we can say that to throw an exception, it will be taking with the help of the exception stage. Okay, again, whenever you are working with the exception stage, okay, whenever you are working with the exception stage, you will be having with the two different kind of the exception. Okay, whenever you are working with the exception stage, you will be having with the two different kind of the exceptions, right? In that, okay, in that one you will be mentioning the predefined, predefined exceptions, and one will be mentioning the user defined exceptions. Okay, one will be taking with the predefined exception, and one will be taking with the user defined exception. Okay, whenever you are working with the exception stages, you will be getting with the two types of the exception. One you will be taking with the predefined exception, and one you will be taking with the user defined exceptions. Now, if I'm taking with the predefined, so predefined already you will be mentioning that defined by the tool. Okay, we can say that defined by the tool. If I'm taking with the user defined exceptions, mentioning that defined by the user. Either we can consider like in a predefined exception, or which it will be mentioning that preserved. Okay, which it will be mentioning that preserved exception. So if I'm taking with the exceptions, you will be getting with the two types of exceptions here. One you will be taking with the predefined exception, and one you will be taking with the user defined exception. So predefined exceptions defined by the tool, and user defined exceptions defined by the user. Okay, right. Now we can see here how we can utilize these things. So let's get understand on it how we can get utilize these particular stages here. Okay. For that, we need to be create with the object. It will be taking with the studio tab. This is the common activity, and which we need to be get created with the object here. Okay, so we'll be getting creating with the object here. Now here I will be creating with the one particular object, which I will be mentioning the exception handling, which I will be creating with the object that I will be creating with the exception handling. Okay, now we can see here. Let's take with the double click on it. Okay, let's take with the double click on it. Now you will be taking with the rename. Okay, I will be taking exception handling. Okay, now we can see here how exactly we can get implemented. Let's understand. First, let me take with the some normal design only to perform some arithmetic activities. That I will be taking with the two date item, which I will be taking with the two date item. We already discussed about with the date item here. So we are taking with the two date item. Thus I will be taking with the X. I will be taking with the number. I will be providing with the 20. Then I will be taking with the Y, and it will be taking with the data type is number, which you will be taking with the 30. Right. Now I'm taking with the calculation stages, which I'm taking with the two calculation stages. Okay. One, I will be taking with the multiply. Okay. We are taking with the X, and which you will be taking with the star. It will be taking Y and getting storing that result multiply. Okay. Right. And next, it will be taken with the calculation. It will be mentioning with the division. It will be taking with the X, and then it will be taking with the Y, and it will be storing that particular result underscore division. Okay. Now we can see here. Let me perform this activity. This is a very common activities which you are already doing it here. Taking with the multiply, division, end activity, and taking into the slow mode here. Okay. Now I'm taking with the reset, and let's take with the run activity. Starting with the execution, taking with the multiply, which you will be taking with the division, and then taking with the end activity. Okay, right. Now which is working fine, we don't have any issues here. Okay. Now we can see here. Let me remove one particular link. Okay, and I'm taking with the reset. Now you are able to see one error here. Right. You are able to see with the one particular error. So if I'm clicking on it, so this is, you can see here, whenever we are designing with the object, while designing itself, we are able to get understand with the error that it will be taking with the syntax errors here. If I click on it, okay, so if I'm performing with the click activity, it is clearly mentioning that missing link. Okay, if I'm performing with the click activity, which it will be mentioning that missing link, and if we click on this go to stage, it will be mentioning that where the link is missing. So this it will be taking with the syntax errors. Now whenever we are taking with the syntax errors, that easily identified by the tool here. Apart from this, it will be taking with the runtime errors. So what exactly mean by runtime errors is, now we can see here, I'm taking with the reset. Here, I'm taking with the Y value is 0, then click on this OK button. Now I'm taking reset. It is getting mentioning that there is no errors here. Okay, it is clearly mentioning that there is no error. Now let me take with the run activity. Once I done with the run activity, then it will be getting an error. Okay, now we can see here. It is giving an error mentioning that division by 0. Now because of this error window, it is not able to continue the next step. The execution is getting stopped at this particular step only, right? So whenever you are getting with the error window, it is not continuing with the next step, which it is getting stopping with the execution at that particular step only. Now, whatever the error we are getting it, we need to be recover this error window. Okay, so whatever the error we are getting it, we need to be recover this error window here. Okay, so to recover this error window, we need to be take with the help of the recover stage. So whenever you are implementing exception handling, it will be taking with the exception stage, recover stage, and resume stage. According to our requirement, we need to be recover the error window. To recover the error window, it will be taking with the help of the recover stage. Now we can see here, we are taking with the help of the recover stage. Okay. Now, whenever we are working with the recover stage, the functionality of the recover stage is to get recover any error window. To get recover any error window, we used to be take with the help of the exception stages here. Okay, right. Now, whenever you are attending with the interview, there may be a chances you will be getting some question. As an example, what are all the stages will be accepting inbound link, and what are all the stages will be accepting outbound link here. Okay, so if I'm taking with if I'm taking with this, okay, whenever you are working with the stages, we need to be get understand that what are all the stages will be accepting inbound link, and what are all the stages will be accepting outbound links. Okay, so what exactly mean by that inbound, or what exactly mean by outbound here? If I'm taking with the calculation stage, it is taking with the input and providing the output. If I'm taking end stage, it was taking with the input, that means inbound. There is no concept of the outbound here. So if I'm taking with the output stage, okay, if I'm taking this end stage, it is not accepting any of the outbound link, which it will be taking only inbound link. Okay, in a similar manner, if I'm taking with the start stage, there is no concept of the inbound here. Okay, if I'm taking with the start stage, there is no concept of the inbound, which it will be taking with the only outbound here. So in interviews, you will be getting in a question, what are all the stages will be having inbound links, or what are all the stages will not be accepting with the inbound link. So here, if I'm taking with the start stage, if I'm taking with the start stage, and if I'm taking with the recover stage, okay, start stage and recover stage will not be accepting any of the inbound link here. Now we can try it. For example, if you want to be connected with the recover stage input, it will not be getting connected. You can try with anything, it will not be getting connected here, because start stage and recover stage will not be having any inbound link, which it will be having with the only outbound here. Okay, so whenever you are working with the start stage and whenever we are working with the recover stage, it will not be having any inbound link, which it will be having only outbound link here. Okay, right. Now, whenever we are taking with the recover stage also, okay, whenever we are taking with the recover stage also, we don't have the possibility to get work with the only recover stage. Okay, while working with the recover stage, we don't have any possibility to work with the only recover stage. We need to be take with the combination of the resume, or we need to be take with the combination of the exception. Okay, so whenever you are working this recover stage, we don't have the possibility to get work with the only recover stage. We need to be take with the help of the resume, or we need to be take with the help of the exception. Okay, right. Now we can see here. Let me try executing up to this. We'll see what will happen here. I'm taking reset. Let's take with the slow mode only, and then we'll be taking run. Now we can see here. Previously we are getting error window. That error window got recovered by the recover stage, and the recover stage is giving an error. So if I'm taking this particular error is related to the recover stage. So if we look into this, previously we got a division error, right? Now we are not getting the division error. That error window is getting recovered by the recover stage, and recover stage itself is giving in a one more error window, because we already mentioning that whenever you are working with the recover stage, we don't have the possibility. Okay, so we don't have the possibility to get work with the only recover stage. It is mandatory. We need to be take with the combination of the resume stage or combination of the exception. If I'm taking with the functionality of the recovered stage, the functionality of the recovered stage is which it will be mentioning that to recover an error window. Okay, right. Now we can see here. I will be taking with the one more stage that I will be taking with the resume stage. Okay, so I will be taking with the one more stage that I will be taking with the resume. It will be taking with the connectivity. Fine. Now we can see here which I will be taking with the reset. And let me get executed. Now let me interchange these two things here. Okay, just I'm interchanging it. First I'm performing with the division activity, and after that we are taking with the multiply. Now let me get executed. Now if I'm executing, how it has to be worked? First it will be starting with the execution. It will be looking into the division. As we have in 0, it will be giving an error window. It will get recovered. Okay, and after that it's need to be get resumed here. Then it's need to be take multiply and then division. Okay, now we can see here. Let me run it. Starting with the execution, whenever you are getting taken with the division, it is giving an error window. So that error window, it is getting recovered by the recover stage, and after that it is taken with the resume. But again you can see here, it is taken with the recover only. It is taken with the infinity here. Okay, so what exactly this logic, why it is taking with the infinity is, the concept is first starting with the execution, coming to the division part. Okay, whenever you are working with the division stage, it is giving an error window. Okay, this error window is getting recovered by the recover stage, and then coming to the resume. Again, resume stage is giving an error. So resume stage is giving one error window. That error window is getting recovered by the recover stage. Again coming to the resume is giving error window. Again it is getting recovered. Why resume stage will be giving an error window is, again we don't have the possibility to get work with the only resume stage here. So while implementing this exception handling, okay, while implementing with the exception handling, we cannot work with only recovered stage, and we cannot work with the only resume stage here. Okay, now once this resume has been completed, we need to be mentioning it what it has to be performed. Okay, for example, either it has to be stop with the execution or it has to be perform any other activities. For example, I will be mentioning that once resume has been completed, take him with the end activity. Now we can see here, if I am taking with the run, starting with the execution, which I will be taking with the division. Okay, division is giving an error window, so that error window is getting recovered by the recovered stage, and after that it is taking with the resume. Okay, so which it will be taking with the resume, and then it got with the multiply. Right, division it did not perform. The reason it was not perform the division is, division it got an error, so then that error window will got recovered by the recovered stage, and after that it was taken with the resume. After resume you are mentioning that perform multiply, which is performing multiply, and then it will be taking with the end activity here. Okay, or whenever resume has been completed, we can take with the help of the end stage also, and we can make with the connectivity of this. We already mentioned that if I'm taking with the start stages, we are having only one start stage, but if I'm taking with the end stages, we can utilize with the multiple end stages here. Okay, now we can see here. Let me take with the run activity. So starting with the execution, getting in a division, error got recovered, taken with the resume, and then it will be taking end activity. Okay, so this is which I will be mentioning that working with the recover stage and which I will be taking with the resume stage here. Okay, so mentioning the recover stage and which I will be taking with the resume stage. In a similar manner, we are having with the exception stage. Okay, it is clearly mentioning that to throw an exception. Okay, so if I'm taking with the exception stage, it is mentioning that to throw an exception. So while throwing an exception, you are getting with the two types of exception. One you are taking predefined, sorry. One you are taking with the predefined exception and one you will be taking with the user defined exception. Okay, so predefined exceptions defined by the tool only, user defined exception defined by the user. Now we can see here how exactly we can utilize this, how exactly we can throw an exception here. Okay, let's look into this. Now, if I'm taking with the exception, when we have to be throw an exception is, you will be writing with the condition. Okay, as part of the scenario, you will be writing with the one condition. So if you want to be write with the condition, what you will be using it, you will be taking with the decision stage. Right. So if you want to be write with the condition, you will be taking with the decision stage. So what is the condition you will be writing is, which it will be mentioning that y value is 0. Okay. In case of the y value is 0, then it has to be throw with the exception. Okay. In case of the y value is 0, then it has to be throw an exception. In case of y value is not equal to 0, then it has to be performed with the division activity. Okay, so whenever you are working with the, okay, so whenever we are taking with this exception handling, there may be a chances we can throw our own exception. So according to our requirement, we are performing with the division activity. In case if we are performing with the division activity, you are taking with the x comma y values. In case of the y value is 0. Okay, so in case of the y value is 0, it's need to be throw an exception. If y value is not 0, then it has to be performed with the division. Now we can see how we can get implemented here. Okay, right. Now let me take with the one decision stage. Okay, I will be taking with the one decision stage. Okay, you will be taking with the one decision stage here. So here let me take with the decision. That means let me write with the condition. What is the condition you will be writing? You will be writing the condition is y value equal to 0. So you are taking with the y, mentioning that equal to 0. Click on validate. Okay. In case of y value equal to 0. Okay, in case of the y value is equal to 0, then it has to be throw an exception. So how we can throw the exception? For throwing an exception, you will be taking with the help of the exception stage. Okay, for throwing an exception, you will be taking with the help of the exception stage. Now here we need to be provide our own exception messages. To provide our own exception messages, just take with the double click on it. So here for easy understanding, it will be mentioning the division error. Okay. If I'm taking with the exception type, which I will be mentioning the division error. Okay, and at the same time now we need to be provide exception message here, which I will be providing exception message that I will be mentioning that y value is 0. So these are considered as a user defined exception. According to our requirement, we are able to provide our own exception messages here. Okay, so then I will be clicking on the OK, which it will be clicking on OK. Now we can see here, let's take with the connectivity. I will be taking with the connectivity. Okay, right. Now we can see. I'm taking with the reset. First, it will be taking with the starting point, looking into the condition. In case of the y value is 0, then it has to be throw an exception. That means in case of the condition is true, then it has to be throw an exception. But we done with the link in interchange, right? So to interchange that, just you can take with the right click activity, mentioning with the switch. Okay, you will be mentioning with the switch. By that it will be interchanged with the link. Now in case of the y value is 0, it will be throwing an exception, otherwise it will be performing with the division activity. Okay, right. Now we can see here, let me run it. For example, first let me take with the y value is 10. Okay, now y value is not equal to 0, then it has to be perform the division activity. Okay, y value is not 0, so performing with the division activity and then taking with the multiply and then taking with the end. Okay, right. Now let me take with the, okay, so let me take with this division value. I mean, let me take with the y value is 0. So this is I will be taking with the 0. Now I'm taking reset. Let's take with the run. Now y value is 0. Then it has to be throw an exception. Exception is throwing it, but that exception is getting recovered by the recover stage. Then taking with the resume activity. After that it will be taking end. But in this scenario, our exception message or exception window need to be get visible to the user. User has to be understand that what is that particular exception. Okay, so whatever the error window it was raising it, that error window need to be get visible for the user. By that user can understand that what will be the issue here. But in this scenario, whenever I'm taking with the execution, you can see here, whenever I'm taking with the execution, it is giving error window, but that error window is getting recovered by the recover stage. That means both the exception stages are getting executed. It is getting executing exception stage and then it is getting executing with the recover stage. If I'm taking with the exception stage, we can get work with the only exception stage. But if I'm taking with the recover stage or resume stage, we cannot get work with the only recover stage and we cannot get work with the only resume stage. Now, as part of our requirement, we need to be get executed only this exception or we need to be get executed only this exception. So this exception handling is different and this exception handling is getting different. So here we are throwing an exception window, we are raising an exception window, here we are recovering with the exception window here. So whenever this particular stage is getting executed, related to this particular stage, this exception will get applicable. Remaining these particular stages, this exception will get applicable. Okay, so how you will be making that applicable, how we can handle with the multiple exceptions. Now this is nothing but handling with the multiple exceptions, right? So according to the Blue Prism terminology, okay, according to the Blue Prism terminology, working this handling with the multiple exception, which is mentioning that exception bubbling. Whenever you are working with the Blue Prism, you will be getting with the new concept that you will be taking with the exception bubbling. So the meaning of exception bubbling is if you are handling with the multiple errors, that you will be mentioning the exception bubbling. Okay, now how we can say that it's need to be get executed only this part. Okay, either we need to be get executed only exception or we need to be get executed only this recover stages. So how we can make with the differentiate is, so for that it will be taking with the help of the block stage. If you remember, previously we discussed about with the block stage to differentiate with the group. Now I'm taking with the two different blocks, and let's take with the reset. Now this exception part will be making with the different, and this exception part will be making with the different here. Okay, right. I'm taking with the reset. Let's take with the run activity. Now you are getting with the error window, so that it will be taking exception stage. Now we can see that it is giving an error window. It is not getting recover. Okay, because we did not provided the details as part of our requirement. We need to be see that error window. It is clearly mentioning that division error. That the division error y value is 0. Okay, so this is how we can throw our own exception messages. Okay, so now it will be clicking on OK. Assume that you don't have any error. So in case, for example, I will be giving y value will be the 20. Okay, or I'll be taking with the y value will be the 5, whatever it may be. Once you are taking with the execution, it will not be giving any error window. It is taken with the division and then taken with the multiply. Okay, so this is what it will be taking with the execution here. Okay, so this I will be taking with the execution here. Right, so now whenever you are getting implementing with the exception handling, one you will be taking with the recover stage, and one you will be taking resume stage, one you will be taking exception stage. Recover just to recover any error window. It is not handling it, just it is recovering with the error window. Resume, it will be resuming with the exception. Exception, it will be throwing an exception. So to throw an exception, you will be getting two types of exception. One you will be taking with the predefined, and one you will be taking with the user defined. So predefined raised by the tool, user defined raised by the user. And there is no possibility to work with the only recover stage and no possibility to work with the only resume stage, but we are having with the possibility to get work with the only exception stage here. Okay, so this which we will be taking care about with the exception handling while working with the Blue Prism here. Okay, so clear up to this? Any clarification on this exception handling? Okay, so in the next level, we need to be get understand how we can get apply this exception handling for our design. That means if we take our previous example, we are implementing with the wait statement, right? In a similar manner, we need to be get understand how we can get implemented this exception handling also. Okay, so whenever we are designing with the object according to the requirement, we need to be get understand what are all the wait statement we can use it, and what are all the exception stages we can get use it. Okay, so that part we'll be discussing tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll be getting understanding that how exactly we can get integrated this exception stages with the common flow here. Okay, so that means we'll be getting designing with the one object, combination of the wait statement, and at the same time combination of the exception. So combination of the wait stages, and which it will be mentioning the combination of this exception handling here. Okay, so for now you can get understand that whenever we are working with the Blue Prism also, we are having with the possibility to implement an exception handling. So to implement exception handling, one we are taking with the recover stage, and one we will be taking resume stage, one we will be taking exception stage. Recover stage, it will recover an error window. Resume stage, it will resume the exception. Exception stage, it will be throwing any exception. Okay. Okay. And whenever we are taking with the recover stage, resume stage, we don't have the possibility to work with the only recover stage or only resume stage. But if I'm taking with the exception stage, we can get work with the only exception stage. Okay. So clear up to this. Any clarification about with the exception handling? Okay. So we'll meet you tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll be getting understanding about combining all the wait statement and then exception handling. And at the same time, we'll get discussed about whether the drop down values here. Because so till now we are getting understanding about the text boxes and buttons, right? In a similar manner, we need to be get understand about how we can get work with the drop down activities also. Okay. Right. Any questions before taking with the exit from the meeting? Fine. So if we don't have any questions, we can get exit from the meeting. Meet you tomorrow then. Okay. Yeah. Thank you guys. Thanks everyone.